It all started on 4chan a few years ago, around 2006. An anonymous user on the B board left a post that said, "Hello, I've worked hard on this game. Please play it, it'd be very fun." It also included a link to a .rar file on MediaFire. Most people would disregard the post due to its poor spelling, and if they did visit the link, they would see that the file was called Ed, and Eddy the Game, and forget about trying it. But the ones that did try it were in for one hell of a ride. Most of the reactions to the game are quite different than the type you might expect. "What the hell? Holy shit, man. That was too scary. Do not play it. It's not what you think it is." And many other posts along the same topic. The post was removed a few months later because of the public reaction to the game, and the MediaFire link is no longer available because the original uploader's account was shut down. What you are about to read is a description of the game. The information gained about the game was received by the various users of 4chan who were unlucky enough to have downloaded the game. The game starts as what appears to be a poorly designed fan game. The title screen is an edit of a screen cap of the show, and the words "play game," "exit game," and "the game" are edited onto it, more than likely using Microsoft Paint. The play game and exit game are clickable, and they do exactly what they say. Starting the game will jump to a black screen with a few blank areas to enter information. The game asks the player for their name, their cell phone number, and the player's address. The game states at the top of the screen that entering any of the information wrong will remove from the experience of the game. Once the player enters their info, they can begin the game by pressing a button that says "play" at the bottom of the screen. Pressing it will throw the player straight into the game. The game is in a first-person perspective. The player starts off on the sidewalk of a poorly designed 3D cul-de-sac. The in-game music is an endless loop of the Ed, and Eddy theme song. And at the bottom of the screen, there's a white text box that acts as a dialogue box for the game. As soon as the game begins, the white text box reads, "Stop right up and try our new scam, trick. I meant magic trick, only 25 cents. The game doesn't allow the player any direction on how to play the game, so they must fiddle around with the keyboard until they figure out the controls. WASD are used to control movement, the spacebar is used to jump, and moving the mouse moves the camera. Moving is slow and jumping is floating and doesn't go very high. Once the player figures out the control game, they'll eventually move towards the middle of the cul-de-sac, where a few characters are and other objects are visible. In the center of the cul-de-sac are flat models of Ed, Eddy, and Double D, Jimmy, Kevin, and Sarah. The models are simple, flat models that are always facing the player no matter where they stand. All the characters are standing around a poorly designed model of what appears to be a rocket ship. Moving closer to it causes a clip from the show to play. The clip is a scene from Season 2, Episode 3 of Ed, and Eddy called Ready, Set, Ed. The clip is a scene of Ed stuffing all the kids into their rocket car, and Eddy enters to explain why Double D and Ed couldn't come with them. The quality is poor, and it ends abruptly after Eddy finishes his explanation. After the clip ends, the player is back in control of the game, but now the player is in a 3D box-like room. The player can't do anything at this point, but after 30 seconds or so, they'll receive a text message on their phone, if they can receive messages. If not, the player must use Alt F4 to exit the game. The message will say, "Type fast." The message is from a private number and cannot be messaged or called. Typing fast on the keyboard will cause the game to show another clip, but this time, the clip is from an old crash test recording. The audio is missing during this clip and no sounds are playing. The footage plays once, then freezes on the last frame. Pressing any button on the keyboard will cause the game to return to play mode, but this time, All the textures of the box's room will be replaced with the final frame of the car crash scene. In the middle of the room, Eddie and Double D stand next to each other. Approaching the two will make the white text box say, "We killed them, Eddie." "I know, you idiot." "Oh my goodness. Think of their families." "No, you moron. Think of the quarters." After a few seconds, the textures of the room will be replaced with pure black, and the text, "You will pay for your sins." Then the game will freeze up for a bit and put the player in a new room. This new room is a long, pure black hallway. After being put in this room for a little bit, the player will receive a text message saying "Run." Some players wouldn't know what to do at this point and quit. Other players would type the word "run" and the game would play a voice clip of Double D crying that was taken directly from the show. And the Ed, Edd, and Eddy music would stop playing. The white text at the bottom of the screen would now read "Run." If the player looks to one side of the hallway, they will notice a flat model of Double D slowly getting closer. Double D was now black and white, and his eyes were now edited to be black and red. He had no mouth. Touching Double D at this point would immediately cause the game to crash. Players that touched Double D claimed to have heard footsteps outside their room, even if they lived alone. If the player moves away from Double D, when they reach the end of the hallway, the game will freeze and move to another location. This new area was a very tall room. The room was very wide and very high. The white text at the bottom of the screen will now read, "Tap the space bar." Tapping the space bar will cause the player to constantly jump, and now the player can fly upwards. After a few seconds, a wide brown polygon will appear at the bottom of the map and slowly move upwards. Touching it will cause the game to crash. If the player flies all the way up to the top of the room, the game will change locations one last time. The player is where they started the game, in the cul-de-sac. But now, nobody is in the center of it. Only a guillotine stands in the middle of the cul-de-sac. The white text now says, "End this horrible game now." But if the player does not touch the guillotine within a minute, they'll receive 17 text messages that all say, "End it." If the player idles any longer, they'll receive a phone call. If they answer it, they'll hear a reverse version of the Ed, Edd, and Eddy opening song. And once it finished, they'll hear a man yell at the top of his lungs. Touching the guillotine leads the player to a menu screen that says, "Congratulations, you beat Ed, Edd, and Eddy the game. You will receive a making of DVD soon. Thanks for playing," along with a button that allows the player to quit the game. And that's the end of the game. If the player looks into the game's files after you beat the game, they'll notice a new JPEG file called Buttered Toast. It's a black and white photograph of an autopsy. The .exe game is now missing. After the player beats the game, they'll receive a package in about 3 to 4 months. Only the first 50 players that beat the game received this package. According to a player that received it, the box was small, but smelled extremely bad. The cardboard on the small package was also wet, according to a player that received it. Within the package is a blank CD called The Making of Ed, Edd, and Eddy the Game. If a player loads the disc into a computer, they'll find an MP4 file called The Making Of. The video starts off with the Ed, Edd, and Eddy opening theme song. After this, a white screen with the words, "The Make Ed of the Game." The screen will remain like this for a few seconds, then cuts to the crash test scene featured in the game. The clip now has sound, but remains quiet until the car hits the wall, and once it does, the video will play screams that are so loud that they'll probably break the player's speakers. Pausing the video does not stop the screams, and the video will force the computer to shut down. Players that have watched the video have had strange occurrences afterwards. They'll tend to hear their phone ring, even though nobody's calling. Some players claim to hear the reverse version of the theme song from far away as an echo. When some players sleep, They'll wake up abruptly to the sound of footsteps or a sound of somebody whispering, "End it," although nobody is around. Some people even claim that all the files on their desktop were replaced with the game's executable file. The game is no longer on the internet, and the creator of the game still remains unknown.